My name is Jessica, and I'm 22 years old. Growing up, I was always taught to be kind, considerate, and respectful to others, especially my younger sister Lily, who is 14. We lived in a quiet neighborhood in Riverstone, a small, peaceful place where everyone knew each other. Lily and I weren't close growing up. While I was always the responsible one, Lily had a tendency to act out. She was always a bit rebellious, and sometimes I found it difficult to keep up with her antics. Lily was a very intelligent girl, but she often used her smarts in ways that made me nervous. She was the kind of person who would lie without hesitation if it meant getting out of trouble. I'd always try to keep her out of trouble, but it felt like she never learned from her mistakes. It was an ordinary Tuesday when everything changed. I'd just finished my shift at the cafe and came home to a quiet house. My parents were out for the evening, so it was just Lily and me. I went straight to my room to drop off my bag, but as I walked by the living room, I noticed that Lily was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but something felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Later that evening, I needed to pay a few bills. As I sat down at my desk, I pulled out my bank card to make a transfer. But when I logged into my account, my heart nearly stopped. There was a transaction for $8,000 gone. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. How could this happen? The transaction was made just a few hours ago. I hadn't made any big purchases, and I was certain my bank account was secure. My first thought was to call the bank, but then another thought crossed my mind. Lily. I walked to the living room, where Lily was still glued to her phone. My voice shook as I asked, "Lily, did you use my bank card?" She looked up at me, her eyes widening for just a second before she quickly covered it up with a forced smile. "No, why would I do that?" she said, as if the very idea was absurd. I couldn't believe it. The moment she spoke, I knew she was lying. But what could I do? I didn't have any evidence. I couldn't just accuse her without proof. But the more I thought about it, the more certain I became that Lily had taken the money. I couldn't understand why she would do something like this, but I knew I needed to find out the truth. I tried to stay calm as I said, "Lily, I need you to be honest with me. I just saw a charge for $8,000 on my account. Did you take the money?" She stared at me for a moment, a slight smirk forming on her face. "If I did, what are you going to do about it?" she replied, her voice cold and dismissive. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had always tried to be understanding with her, even when she was difficult, but this was something I could not let go. I took a deep breath and said, "If you don't give me back the money, I'll have to call the police. This isn't something we can just ignore." She burst out laughing. "The police? Really, Jessica? You're going to call the police on your little sister over some money? You're pathetic," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Her words cut deep. I stood there, stunned, as she continued to laugh like it was a joke. It felt like the world was crashing down on me. I had worked so hard to earn that money, and now Lily had stolen it and didn't even care. I was furious, but I didn't want to lose control. I took a step back and looked her straight in the eye. "If you don't give me back the money right now, Lily, I swear I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you pay for what you've done," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. She didn't seem fazed. "Do your worst, Jessica. You'll never catch me." I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just let this go. I had to make her understand the consequences of her actions. The tension in the room was thick, and I knew that something had to change. I had to figure out a way to get the money back, but also to make her understand how serious this was, and most importantly, I had to teach her a lesson she would never forget. I went to my room, still in shock from the confrontation. My mind was racing with thoughts of what to do next. Should I call the police immediately? But then I thought about it more. I had a better idea, one that would make sure Lily would never steal from me or anyone else again. I didn't know yet what the exact plan would look like, but I was sure of one thing. I was going to get my revenge. I spent the next few hours pacing around my room, my mind buzzing with anger and frustration. I kept replaying Lily's words in my head, the smugness in her voice, the way she laughed when I threatened to call the police. It hurt more than I cared to admit. I had always looked out for her, even when she acted out. But this time, she had crossed a line that I couldn't ignore. I had to get that money back. But how? I thought about calling the police again, but I knew deep down that wasn't the solution. Lily was smart. Too smart for her own good, and she would find a way to weasel out of any trouble. I needed a plan that would hit her where it would hurt the most. Her pride. That's when it hit me. Lily was always so confident, thinking she could get away with anything. She didn't respect me. She didn't care about the money I worked hard for. What if I made her think she was in control just for a moment? What if I played her at her own game, made her believe she was winning, and then pulled the rug out from under her when she least expected it? The more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea. I wasn't going to call the police not yet, but I was going to teach Lily a lesson. A hard one. The next morning, I woke up early, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. I had already planned everything out in my head. I knew I had to act quickly before Lily figured out what I was up to. She was crafty, but I knew her well enough to outsmart her. All I had to do was stay one step ahead. I decided to play the role of the nice, understanding sister for now. I couldn't afford to let Lily know that I was onto her. So I went into the living room and found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like she always did. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "Lily," I said softly, my voice calm and steady. "I've been thinking about what you said last night, about calling the police." She glanced up at me, a look of annoyance flashing across her face. "What now, Jessica?" she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Are you going to keep threatening me?" "No," I said, sitting down next to her. "I've decided not to call the police. But I need you to understand something, Lily. This isn't just about the money. It's about respect. You can't keep doing things like this without consequences." She raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by my sudden change in attitude. "Oh, and what are you going to do about it?" I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. "I'm going to give you a chance to make things right. If you give me the money back, I won't press charges. But if you don't, then I will take things further. I promise you won't like the consequences." Lily stared at me for a moment, unsure of what to make of my words. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was thinking it over. I knew she didn't want to face the consequences of her actions, and that was where I had her. "Fine," she said after a long pause. "I'll give you the money, but you'll have to wait. I need some time to get it back." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "I understand. But remember, Lily, I'm watching. If I don't see that money soon, I'll have no choice but to take action." With that, I left her to her thoughts. I could feel the tension in the air, the weight of what was to come. I didn't know when or how Lily would try to make things right, but I was prepared for whatever came next. Over the next few days, I kept my distance from Lily, not wanting to give her any clues about what I was planning. I went to work, spent time with friends, and made sure I stayed busy. But in the back of my mind, I was always thinking about the $8,000 she had taken from me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Lily wasn't going to give it back easily. I knew that she was clever, that she had a knack for getting out of sticky situations, but I also knew that she was overconfident. She thought she could play me, but I wasn't going to let that happen. One afternoon, as I was getting ready to leave for work, I received a text from Lily. It simply read, "I have the money. Meet me at the park later. Don't bring anyone." My heart skipped a beat. This was it. I was finally going to get the money back, but something didn't feel right. Why the park? Why didn't she just give it to me at home? But I didn't overthink it. I told myself that it was just her way of doing things, trying to be mysterious or rebellious as usual. I replied, "I'll be there in an hour." When I arrived at the park, I saw Lily standing by a bench, her arms crossed, her usual smirk on her face. But as I approached, I noticed something strange. She didn't look as confident as usual. There was something off about her demeanor, a slight nervousness I hadn't seen before. "Where's the money?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Lily didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled out her phone and showed me a bank transfer, the kind that I would receive if she sent me the money. My eyes narrowed as I looked at the screen. It looked legitimate, but I couldn't be sure. I needed to confirm it. "Is this it?" I asked, taking a closer look. "Is this how you're giving it back?" "Yeah," she said, her voice shaking a little. "That's the money. I transferred it to your account. So, are we good now?" I hesitated. Something didn't feel right, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing my doubt. I told her I would check my account and let her know. As I walked away from the park, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. Something wasn't adding up. Why had she chosen to do it this way? Why hadn't she just handed me the money directly? When I checked my account, my worst fears were confirmed. The transfer had never happened. There was no 8,000 in my account. Lily had played me. She had made me think she was going to do the right thing, but in reality, she had just been trying to get out of trouble. She had lied to my face, pretending to make amends, while secretly making sure that I never saw a cent of my money. I clenched my fists, furious at myself for falling for her trick. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I had given Lily a chance to make things right, but now I was going to take matters into my own hands. I walked back to my apartment, my mind racing with ideas. I had to come up with something big, something that would force Lily to give me what I deserved. She had messed with the wrong person. It was time for me to execute my revenge, and this time I wasn't going to let her get away with it. The next few days felt like a blur. I spent every waking moment plotting, my mind constantly coming up with new ways to make Lily pay for what she had done. But I had to be careful. If I made any missteps, she might catch on, and I didn't want her to see me coming. I had to outsmart her just like she thought she had outsmarted me. I went to work as usual, pretending like everything was fine, but I couldn't stop thinking about the 8,000. Every time I checked my phone, I found myself hoping for a notification from the bank, but there was nothing. No transfer. No sign of Lily making good on her promise. I decided to do something unexpected. If Lily thought I would just sit around and wait for her to fix the situation, she was wrong. I needed to take action, but I also needed to play my cards carefully. I knew that if I confronted her too soon, she would probably just lie her way out of it again. I needed leverage. I needed something that would force her hand. I began to gather information. I knew Lily had a few online accounts where she liked to buy clothes and makeup. I wasn't sure how much money she had, but I had an idea that could work. If I couldn't get the money back directly, I could at least hit her where it would hurt the monster pride. I hacked into her accounts. It wasn't as difficult as I had expected. Lily was always so careless with her passwords. I had access to her social media accounts, her online shopping profiles, and even some of her email accounts. I felt a surge of power as I realized how much control I had. But I didn't just want to embarrass her, I wanted to teach her a lesson she would never forget. So I began to make small changes. I moved some of her savings into my account. I paid off a few of her outstanding bills using the money I had access to. But I also left her with a few surprises she wasn't expecting. I ordered some items from her favorite clothing website, things I knew she would absolutely hate. I knew she wouldn't be able to return them, and when the package arrived, it would make her realize that I had the power to control her life without her even knowing it. But I didn't stop there. I sent a few cryptic messages to some of her friends from her social media, pretending to be her. I made plans to meet them, told them I was going out of town, and even flirted with a few of the guys she had been talking to. My goal wasn't to ruin her friendships, but I wanted her to feel as though I was in control of her entire world. I wanted to make her question everything. The next day, when I came home from work, I could feel the tension in the house. I walked in to find Lily sitting at the kitchen table, a scowl on her face. She didn't say anything when I walked in, but I could tell she was upset. I had been expecting this. "Jessica, what's going on?" she asked, her voice tight with frustration. "Why are you messing with my stuff?" I smiled, trying to hold back my excitement. "What do you mean, Lily?" She glared at me, her eyes narrowing. "Don't play dumb. I saw the orders. I saw the changes you made. You went into my accounts, didn't you?" I took a deep breath and slowly sat down across from her. "Lily, I gave you a chance to make things right. I tried to be understanding, but you just kept lying to me. You thought you could get away with taking my money and then trick me into thinking everything was fine. But it's not. It's never going to be that easy. You can't just mess with people and expect no consequences." Her face turned red with anger. "You're insane. You've gone too far this time. You don't even care about me. You're just trying to make me suffer." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "You're right, Lily. I don't care about you anymore. I care about making sure you never do something like this again. I've been kind to you for so long, and you just took advantage of me. You're not getting away with it this time." Lily stood up, her fists clenched. "You're so pathetic. You think you've won, don't you? You think you've finally gotten me back, but you're wrong. You haven't beaten me." I could see the fear in her eyes. She was trying to act tough, but I knew I had gotten under her skin. She was scared. She knew she had crossed a line, and now she was realizing that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I didn't respond to her outburst. I just stared at her, letting the silence hang in the air. It was clear that she was struggling to process everything that was happening, but that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted her to feel helpless, to feel as though she had no control over the situation anymore. She finally broke the silence, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. "You think this is over, don't you? You think I'm just going to let you ruin my life? Well, you're wrong. I'm not going down without a fight." I smiled, the satisfaction of knowing I had her exactly where I wanted her settling in. "Lily, the fight's already over. You just don't realize it yet." For a moment, it looked like she was going to say something else, but she just turned and stormed out of the room. I didn't chase her. I didn't have to. She knew she had lost. As I sat there, a sense of relief washed over me. I had taken back control. I had made her understand the consequences of her actions, and I knew she wasn't going to forget this anytime soon. But there was still one last part of my plan to put into motion. I wasn't done with her yet. There was one more thing I had to do to make sure she learned the lesson I had been trying to teach her. But first I had to wait. I had to let her think she had won for just a little while longer. Then I would hit her with the final blow. Days passed, and things were tense in the house. Lily didn't speak to me much after our confrontation. She stayed locked away in her room, occasionally coming out to eat or grab something from the kitchen, but she avoided eye contact at all costs. It was almost like she was afraid of me, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She was learning that I wasn't someone to mess with. But I knew she wasn't going to stay quiet for long. Lily was stubborn, and eventually she would try to get back at me. I could feel it in the air, her simmering anger, the way she would sometimes glance at me when she thought I wasn't looking. She was plotting something, and I had to be ready for whatever she threw my way. I decided it was time to implement the final step of my plan. I went to work as usual, keeping up the act of being the normal, calm older sister, but inside I was anticipating the moment when Lily would finally make her move. I had to prepare myself for whatever that might be. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about teaching her that actions have consequences, that she couldn't just go through life taking whatever she wanted without thinking about the damage it would cause. That evening, when I returned home, I found a letter on the kitchen counter. It was from Lily, and as soon as I saw her handwriting, my heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew this would be important. I opened the letter and began to read. Jessica, I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. I know I messed up, and I know I hurt you. I never meant to, but I was just angry at everything. I was angry at Mom and Dad, at the world, at you for always being perfect. I thought if I could just take something from you, maybe I could make things even. But I see now that it was stupid. You were right, I crossed the line. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm trying to change. I don't expect things to go back to normal, but I want to make it right. I'm going to start by paying you back the money I took. I know it's not enough, but it's a start. I don't expect anything from you. I just hope you can see that I'm sorry. Lily. I sat there, staring at the letter in shock. I had been expecting some sort of confrontation, but this was completely unexpected. Was Lily really apologizing? Was she finally admitting that she was wrong? For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. Part of me had wanted to break her, to make her feel the full weight of what she had done. But now, reading her words, I realized that maybe this was all she needed. Maybe she needed to realize that her actions had consequences, and maybe this letter was the first step in her journey toward understanding that. But I couldn't just let her off the hook. Not completely. The next day, I decided to have one final conversation with her. I waited until she came out of her room for breakfast and then casually asked, "Hey, Lily, can we talk for a minute?" She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room, but she finally nodded and followed me into the living room. We sat down on the couch, and I could feel the tension between us. She looked nervous, as if she wasn't sure what was going to happen next. "I read your letter," I said softly, "and I appreciate the apology. It took a lot of courage to admit you were wrong." Lily didn't say anything, but I could see the shame in her eyes. She was waiting for me to speak, to tell her what would happen next. "I'm not going to say that everything is fine now," I continued. "You've hurt me, Lily, and you've hurt yourself. But I do want to give you a chance to make things right." Her eyes widened slightly, as if she wasn't expecting me to say that. "What do you mean?" "I'm not going to punish you for what you've done," I said, my voice steady. "But I am going to hold you accountable. I want you to keep your promise and pay me back the money. I want you to show me that you can be responsible, that you can own up to your actions. If you really want to change, this is where you start." Lily nodded, a quiet relief washing over her face. "I will, Jessica. I promise. I'll make it right." And just like that, something shifted between us. I wasn't expecting us to become best friends or to completely forget what had happened, but I felt a sense of closure. Lily had acknowledged her mistake, and she was ready to take responsibility for it. That was more than I had ever hoped for. But even as I felt a sense of relief, I knew that this wasn't the end. I wasn't going to just forgive and forget, not yet. I still had to make sure that Lily understood the depth of her actions. She needed to feel the consequences in a way that would stick with her. Over the next few weeks, Lily began paying me back, little by little. She worked odd jobs around the neighborhood, babysitting for neighbors, walking dogs, and doing whatever she could to raise the money. It wasn't easy for her, and I could see that it was starting to wear on her. She was learning the value of hard work and the importance of making things right. One evening, as I was sitting at the kitchen table, I noticed Lily walking in with a small envelope in her hand. She walked up to me, holding it out with a sheepish expression on her face. "I've got the rest of the money," she said quietly. "I know it took longer than I promised, but it's all here." I took the envelope, feeling a mix of emotions. Thank you, Lily, I said softly, looking at her for a moment before adding, "You've really done something important here, not just for me, but for yourself." She looked down at her feet, her voice barely a whisper. "I know I've screwed up, but I'm trying, Jessica, I really am." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. The final part of my revenge hadn't been about humiliating her or making her feel worse. It had been about teaching her a lesson she would never forget. Lily had learned what it meant to take responsibility for her actions, and in a way, I had learned something too. Sometimes, the hardest part of revenge isn't about getting back at someone. It's about knowing when to stop, when to let go, and when to give the other person a chance to make things right. I smiled at Lily, feeling the weight of everything we had been through between us. "I'm proud of you," I said, surprising myself. "You've really grown." She smiled back, a small but genuine smile. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was enough. And that was all I needed.